Welcome back to an exciting video. So, you know the pentatonic scale, but what do you do with it? Welcome back to the channel, and the first thing you're going to notice is I am in the new space. It is kind of echoey in here, so I am sorry about that because I've spent most of my time working on the podcast room, which is completely set up. So as you can see here, I've got the new space. It's a little bland behind me right now, but I will be working on that in the future as things unfold. And of course, Got my computer desk behind me. I am actually going direct, which I never do. So we're going to go direct. I don't know. I just don't like recording direct for some reason. I'd rather come through my speakers, but we're going direct. But moving on, before we get started, the track you just heard, that is an original track. This is the guitar that was played on this track. This is the guitar we are giving away if we hit 50,000 subscribers, and we need to get this thing moving quickly. I've been out for about 4 weeks because of the move and other things that have happened in my life, which I will get into in a subsequent video, because right now, this is a long video. We've got a lot of shit to cover in a very small amount of time. This is the only guitar I have in standard at the moment. So this is the one I'm going to be playing for the YouTube channel until we give this thing away. So subscribe to the video, hit the share button, because sharing helps the algorithm and that sends it out to more people. So when they search, this will come up more and we get more subscribers. We can give the guitar away faster. Click the bell. Also, my Patreon page is up, and I've got some pretty cool things coming around. You can join my Patreon page for as little as $3 a month to help support the channel. And I've got some picks that I have ordered, my shreddy picks. They are seriously cool. Got a skeleton on them, playing a Les Paul. They're pretty neat. And if you join the $6 tier, you will be getting a set of the my shreddy picks, and I've got some other cool things coming in also to give away from my Patreon page. But joining the Patreon page helps me keep this channel going. So jump on the Patreon page, subscribe to the channel, click the like, and share. That is critical. And like I said, this is the very guitar we're going to be giving away, and I will be playing this guitar on this YouTube channel until we give it away. And we need to do this quick, because the more I play this guitar, the more I fall in love with this guitar. This thing is absolutely amazing, and you heard it on the song. It just absolutely screams. So on that note, make sure everything is working behind me. I've had quite a few people tell me, hey, I know the pentatonic scale, I just don't know what to do with it. And I've had a couple messages come across my YouTube channel, but I've also had a couple, one of my very close friends, he's like, dude, when you get that up, let me know. He said, because I have that same issue. I know the pentatonic scale, I'm just not sure what to do with it. Well, we're going to tell you what to do with it in this video, and we're going to break this down, and we're going to be moving very, very fast, because there's a tremendous amount of information to cover about this thing on what I think you need to do to get out of that pentatonic rut that I like to call, that we've all been in, and God knows I've been in it 1,000 times, and I still find myself getting into it from time to time. So let's just jump off right now and get started. So as you heard, the song I just did, that was all done in D minor. And so, it's up here, D minor. So, but we're going to go over most of these examples in A minor, because everybody's very familiar with the A minor pentatonic scale. So just jump off right out of the gate. What I think you need to do, the first thing you need to do to get out of this rut, is you need to learn that, make sure you understand the pentatonic scale directly below it and directly above it, because that's going to help you break out of this one box right here. And when I played the solo of the song, I started in playing here in the second box. And then when I did the little runs and stuff, I would move through the second box into the first box, down into the fifth, and then back up into the first box. I did that quite a few times during the song, although remember, I was in D minor at the time. I'm showing you this on A minor. So, and I actually started that song off right here in this box. So I played the song right there. And because that's going to open up so much more for you, you're not going to be just relegated to playing right here in this little box. And because nobody wants to get stuck in that, and we've all done it a million times, and you got to start thinking on how to get out of that. So learning the box directly above it and directly below it, and I'm going to assure you, if you learn those three boxes that are attached, you can play 99.999% of everything you play in this world right there. Now, don't get me wrong, when you're playing Randy Rhoads and stuff, you're going to have to move around the neck quite a bit. But a lot of times, they'll be playing in the pentatonic scale up here, and then they'll shift and be playing in the same pentatonic scale right here. But if they jump out of it, 9 out of 10 times, it is the one that is attached in front of or below that first box. So that is critical that you learn those boxes right there below and after. And there's also, well, I'll get into this right here. So in this part right here, learn the box before and the box after. So something else. Now, to me, this is one of the most critical things you can do. There's a couple of things that I think are just the thing A, help you solo, and to B, make your solos better. And this is one of them right here. You must learn the diatonic scale under the first position of the pentatonic scale. What do I mean by that? So, the pentatonic scale, as you know, is... And I apologize, I don't know how well this sound is going to translate. This is actually one of my live sounds that I'm using. It is not set up for going direct, so it could sound like total shit. And then after this video, then I will start getting sounds for that particular thing, but time was short and I had to get this thing going. So it may be just super muddy, but over my speakers it sounds phenomenal. So moving on. So if you learn the diatonic scale, so you know the pentatonic scale. Well, the pentatonic scale, if we're going to descend, we're going to start right here at 8. We're going to play 8, 5, 8, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 8, 5. If we bring in the diatonic scale of A minor, which is also we could use for the relative major scale of C major over this same position. To me, this is a critical must learn for soloing in the minor pentatonic scale. So this gets the critical alert right here. So if you're playing the diatonic scale, it's still going to start at 8, just like your minor pentatonic scale, except we're going to go 8, 7, 5, 8, 6, 5, 7, 5, 4, 7, 5, 3, 7, 5, 3. Which just happens to be your C. And that is going to open a tremendous amount of doors for you for a couple of reasons. One thing it's going to do is it's going to open it up and it's going to add back the 2nd and the 6th degree of the scale, which has been taken out of the pentatonic scale because those are the two notes that sound kind of crappy over most of the other notes played in the scale. The 2nd and the 6th just doesn't blend very well, but those notes can add a tremendous amount of flavor to your soloing. And then also by adding those notes back in, this gives you a much easier 3-note per passage run. Have you ever tried to make very fast runs on 2 notes per string? It is hard. 3 notes makes it so much easier. So if we add back in that 2nd and that 6th to our minor pentatonic scale, and even if we just use it on the B and the E string, this gives us a great jumping off place for some fast runs. If we just add in, that gives us those 3 notes per string on the 2 top strings. And it gives us something that we can shred off of. But if you wanted to shred it a little further, then you can take the diatonic scale all the way down to the root of C, the major, or you can jump up to the G and slide it back up to the A minor, which would be the root of the minor scale. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. And if you run off that G back up to the A, that's going to keep it in a very minor sounding solo. But if you ended up on that G, obviously, that's going to give you a very major sounding solo, depending on what chord you end that over. So keep that in mind. To me, that is critical because there's so many players out there that use that 2nd and that 6th so much. Gary Moore being one of them. And still got the blues. Without having the 2nd and the 6th in there, the solo just absolutely would not work. You've got to have those in there because then I'm pretty sure it's still got the blues where it's don't hold me to this. Something like that. But he's using that 2nd to kind of set that run up. So, and it's just critical. It would not work without having that 2nd in there. And I love, even when I use the pentatonic scale, even if I'm not using that diatonic scale, I'm just playing strictly pentatonic, I use the 2nd and the 6th constantly because it just adds more flavor. If you listen to Hotel California, it is in B minor. They use that 6th in that passage. That's it. They're using that sixth constantly inside there, and it would not sound correct without that sixth. So even if you don't want to do the whole diatonic scale, just adding in that second and that sixth right here at the beginning will open up a million doors for you. Another person who uses that all the time is Joe Satriani. When he does that little crying sound, we're going to go up here to E minor. He will bend that sixth up and then pull off, and it gives it kind of this crying, whining sound, this whiny ass whining. Listen. And I find myself using that lick a lot of time when I'm comping solos live. So keep that in mind. Adding that in is going to just open up a million doors for your soloing by adding that second and that sixth back in. It's still the minor pentatonic scale. We're just adding in some notes, because if there's, like I said, if there's ever a rule to be broken, this is the instrument to break the rules of music on, is the guitar. So keep that in mind. Add that back in. And then also, if you do use that, if you notice, that gives us a fantastic repeating section for really fast riffing. Which is fantastic, because if you listen to a lot of the shreddy stuff like I listen to, a lot of times when they hear play these really fast runs, they're not doing this real intricate, run, this big diminished, weirdo run. A lot of times they're just playing the octaves and moving through the same shape like this. And they're just doing it extremely fast. It sounds very cool and it looks cool because you're, moving from here to here. And it looks really cool. So adding that second and sixth in actually does a lot for your pentatonic soloing, because it gives you a lot of options you will not have without it. So learn the diatonic scale, and I'm gonna run over it one more time right here in the eighth. First position in the A minor, starting at 8. It's 8-7-5, 8-6-5, 7-5-4, 7-5-3, 7-5-3. And that is a fantastic thing to learn. And that is a critical must learn for your minor pentatonic soloing. All right, coming back over another thing here. Let's talk about string skipping a little bit here. String skipping is also a must learn for me. Critical alert, must learn. Because like I said, you're playing everything vertically, yada, 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 and you're up and down vertically, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, you go backwards, and it's just boring as hell. When I started this solo off, I came right out of the gate with some major string skipping. Like I said, back in D minor, and I came out with, I'm gonna go from 1 to 3 to 2 to 4, because it would not sound correct. This is the original one. All right, and you can see I move from box 2 back into box 1. But had I played it vertically, it just wouldn't sound right. So I skipped the strings, and that lets the song, that opens up space, and you've got to have space in the song. So coming right out of the gate, I created a lot of space by doing the string skipping. Which set me up to do my little riff to get me back into box 1. So that got me back into where I was going. And then I do it again. After I do these little runs. Because that gives me a lot of space in my solo. People love listening to things rhythmically. 1, 2, 3, 4. And they love listening to music. Da 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 da. When you change that pattern, that catches their attention. And when I come off this little so I'm jumping from the first down to the fourth, back to the second. And that gives me a lot of space in my solo, and it sets up other runs that I want to do, because without, I could do this run, you know, here, but it just wouldn't sound as right as coming out of the second box, as opposed to doing this. It just sounds so much better coming out of that second box. And because of the chords I'm using, the notes lined up for the sound I was trying to achieve much better. So keep that in mind. String skipping is critical, and it opens up space. So if you're going to play this, and like I was talking about with the ascending and descending runs, if you're going to do this, instead of resolving back down to that A, why don't you just go and jump up an octave, because the listener is going to be thinking you're heading down, and then you're going to shoot back up, and that gives a little bit of interest to what you're playing. String skipping, very, very, very important. Keep that in mind. Another thing I'm going to talk about real quick, double stops. So when I started this solo, I could have started this with and that works. That's fine. But I wanted to grab the attention of the listener right out of the gate. And since this is per se a sad bluesy ballad type thing, I wanted to give it a little more emotion. I wanted to make it well. I wanted to make it scream. So I hit a double stop right out of the gate. I grab a double stop. Because to me, that just adds a lot of power into it, adding that double stop. And what I'm doing is I'm reaching up. I'm on the E string at the 15th fret, and I'm reaching up and grabbing that B when I pick. And because if you keep a little space between the strings, when you do a bend, if you time it right and your positioning is right, your E string is going to bend up a full note. Your B string is going to bend up a half note. And it sounds fantastic. That to me is one of the things I do probably more than just about anything else when I'm soloing, is I double stop the hell out of my bends. Now it's not just bends, you know, double stops are, you know, those are all double stops. Now granted, you don't want to do something that cheesy in your soloing, but there is a time and a place for it. But I do a tremendous amount of double stops, and double stops don't have to just be on two adjacent strings. Because if you notice in the second half of the solo, I kick it off with some double stops on one of my favorite blues riffs in the world. I love that riff, and I use that riff. If I'm doing anything bluesy, you can almost guarantee that riff's going to be in there every time. And let me go over the just in case. What I'm doing is I'm barring off 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm doing this in D. Let's go down to A minor. At the 5th fret, I'm barring off 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm going to start with my ring finger. Since I'm in A minor, I'm going to start with my ring finger on the 7th fret. On the 4th string, and I'm going to pick 4 and 1 at the same time, and then I'm going to lift that up and I'm going to pick 3, 1 on the 5th fret, and then 3, 1 again. I'm going to put this back down in the 7th fret, and I'm going to play this little off time structure. If you hear it, it'll step off of the normal rhythm. And I love that riff, and I use that riff a lot. So you can play double stops on just about anything. It does not have to be adjacent strings. The double stops really add a lot to your solo, and starting off like I did, in my opinion, with that big scream, adds a lot of power to the solo coming right out of the gate, which is a good thing, because that captures the listener's attention right out of the gate. All right, moving on. Now, if you noticed, when the first half of actually the first 2/3 of this song, when I was soloing over this, I did something that a lot of people don't do normally. If you think about it, I was doing all my soloing up here on strings 4, 5, and 6. And the reason I was doing it because I wanted to give a definitive separation between my melody and my guitar solo. So I did it that way. And on the first, when I go through the verse, and then the actual bridge, because the way this song is laid out, you really can't, you can tell if you listen to the song, it's actually verse, chorus, bridge. And then I went into the solo after that over the verse, chorus section. So what I did is I wrote this as in I was writing a vocal line, and I wanted to portray it as a vocal line. What does that mean? One thing that a lot of guitar players fail to do is let the solo breathe. Gary Moore and Gilmore were absolutely brilliant at doing this, letting it breathe. And somebody else who's brilliant at doing this is Mark Knopfler, which is just a beast of a guitar player, letting it breathe. Well, when I start the song off, you'll notice back in D minor, I go, I'm letting it breathe. I'm letting it breathe a lot. I mean, you know, those little things called rest that are in notation, those are there for a reason. And a lot of people soloing don't do it. They just endlessly noodle on the notes. Well, sometimes the note you don't play is just as important as the note that you do play. And when I did this I was trying to encompass a lot of things that I do when I'm soloing or writing a solo. And I wanted to make sure that they heard a lot of the breathing in it. Well, what do I mean by breathing? Well, if you're a vocalist or a horn player, which is another thing to comp is horn playing, you know, and you're like da 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 da, you have to breathe. So you just can't sing an endless line. You have to breathe. A horn player cannot play an endless line. He has to breathe. Well, they put those breaths in the perfect places of the song, a place that nothing really needs to be there. And that's what I mean about letting the song breathe. You have to let it breathe in certain places. I have all kinds of breathing on the song. And like I said, I do the bulk of the playing up here on these strings because I wanted to have a very big gap between the verse chorus and the actual guitar solo and what they would sound like. So I rolled off my volume knob, went up to my neck pickup, you know, and played a little softer. You know, and I did all that through the verse, and I got to the bridge. Now this song was in D minor, and it has a dominant fifth in it, and that's what you're going to hear right here is me going to the dominant fifth in the bridge. And then that little lick. But there's a lot of breathing in there. And then when I get to the solo, I don't have time to breathe because now it's time to solo. It's time to burn. So I come right out of the gate with that, just screaming double stop. So let it breathe. Listen to what you're actually playing. And if a note doesn't need to be there, do not put a note there. Now, this is another one of my criticals. Critical warning. This is a must for me, is letting the solo breathe. You just can't play and play and play and play and play and play because it's going to exhaust the listener and you're not doing anything interesting. You're not saying anything. But if you let it breathe, I'm making statements. And that's exactly what I'm doing. If you listen here, I'm saying phrases. So I'm actually saying something on the guitar, and I'm writing it in phrases. I'm just not writing this solo. If I was going to sing this song, this is the melody that I would sing to. This is the melody part of the song. And in the melody, you must breathe. But if you also notice in that melody, there's a lot of string skipping going on also. Where I go. Where I'm going from the 6th to the 4th to the 5th. So keep that in mind. String skipping, very important, because it wouldn't sound right if I just went. It would work, but it doesn't have the dynamic of all that space you create by doing the string skipping and jumping up these big sections throughout the scale. All right, another thing. Now to me, this is not as critical. I'm not going to give this one a critical alert, but this is one of the things I love doing, and that is playing off of the rhythm. What do I mean by that? We have a tendency to listen to things in 1, 2, 3, 4. And when something varies off of that, it catches the oh, whoa, okay, what just happened there? That is, it adds interest to what you're doing. And a good example of that is when I'm playing the solo, when I come out with the, right here. I'm gonna put sections of the tab up on my Patreon page, and you're gonna see a tremendous amount of dotted 16th notes and stuff like that, because I'm playing off of the time here where I go. And then I do it again with this little sweeping passage. String skipping. Then I start my first run. Then when I go back to the big run up the neck. Now it's not a fast run, and all your runs don't need to be fast. Everything doesn't need to be 1,000,000 miles an hour, but I'm back off of the rhythm again. I'm not following the 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm playing in between the beats, and I do it again here. And remember what I said, adding back in that 6th and that second note. Well, guess what? I'm stopping on the 2nd after that run to bring me back into that 3rd. And if you remember, the 2nd is not in the pentatonic scale, but because I do all my pentatonic scale playing and I jump in and out of the diatonic, it's easier for me to figure out where to use those at. And right here's the note, and I'm gonna hold on that note. That's the note, and then I slide up, and if you notice, my minor pentatonic scale is right here. I'm going to slide up into my first box of the pentatonic scale. And that sets me up for one of my favorite blues riffs in the world, my double stop riff. And to me, that is just a great combination of sound. I come through this walking passage, all minor pentatonic, until I get to the end where I add in the 2nd. Because without having that 2nd, I'm losing that flavor going back and resolving to that 3rd. Listen. If I were to go just straight to the 3rd, it loses all interest. That is no longer an interesting phrase. And that's what I'm trying to do, is keep this interesting. And by adding those 2nds and 6ths back into your playing, adding the diatonic into your minor pentatonic playing, it just brings a whole new life to your phrasing. And like I said, and that's set up perfectly, me doing my little double stop blues riff here. Then of course, and that starts to bring me up to the 2nd run. Where I do this little minor, prime example right here. I start in the minor pentatonic scale, but then I finish this run in the diatonic scale. And then I come back out of that in the diatonic scale back into the minor pentatonic scale. And you can see how adding that diatonic over the position of the first position minor pentatonic scale just opens up a million doors for you, a million doors. So if you study these things, those are going to be the things that are going to help you break out of that never-ending, boring as hell, shoot yourself in the head. And I think it was Budweiser that did a commercial, and the actual guitar solo coming out when they're doing their little, whatever the commercial was, it was actually, or it could have been, I don't know, something like that. It was terrible, absolutely terrible. And you could tell it was a pentatonic scale, and they were just playing vertically. What I mean by vertically is not this, playing the notes in sequence vertically, up and down. That's what you got to get out of, and that's where most people struggle, is getting out of that. So what I'm going to do is just real quick, slowly, we're going to break down the solo, and this is going to help us recap everything I just talked about. So we're going to, and I'm just going to break down the solo. I'm not going to break down the verse part, except to say that on the verse part, the verse and the bridge, I let it breathe. I put in rest. If you play all that song non-stop, it's going to just get monotonous as hell, and you're going to wear the listener out. Let them breathe. Take that pause to give them something. Okay, what's coming up next? What am I going to hear next? Let them anticipate what is coming back up. And I keep it pretty simple. Like I said, I solo mostly on these 3 strings throughout the first 2/3 of the song. And I keep it, the volume rolled off, low distortion, because when I come into the solo, I want to come in just screaming with that big double stop. And it really differentiates the 2 sections dramatically. It's a huge difference between the 2 in the playing styles. So keep that in mind. So like I said, what I did is, and I'm going to cover everything I just talked about. We're going to cover in this solo, except for the breathing part, because I did all that in the first 2/3 of the song. So we came out of the gate with a massive double stop bend. Straight into 2 sets of string skipping. Now what I did here is I did a little muting passage to add some variation to what I'm doing. That set me back up, coming out of my second position to my first position. I do this first little arpeggio sweep thing, and I'm doing it off of tempo. Add a couple of harmonics. And then, of course, I hit this big sweep down. Then, of course, I hit this big sweep down. And then I do another little slow sweep passage back up off tempo, where I palm mute the first half of it. And you can see there, I go from that second back into the third out of the diatonic scale. And here I do some huge string skipping. Now I'm going from the first string down to the fourth. Back up to the second from the fourth. This sets up my first little run. And as you can see, I'm moving from the first box, second box, to the first box, to the fifth box. First box, now I'm moving into the, second box, now I'm moving back into the first. Down into the fifth box. Now I'm back into there. All right. So this is going to bring me up to my big walk up, which is all minor pentatonic until I get to the end. I stop on that second again and bring it back into the third. And it's, again, it is off the rhythm of the song. Brings me into my double stop section, which, like I said, one of my favorite blues riffs in the world is this one right here. Brings me into the second part of the run. Then we're going to start off in the minor pentatonic and we're going to end in the diatonic on the last 2 notes. We're going to descend in the diatonic and end back in the minor pentatonic. And then we do this little sweeping arpeggio again with a lot of palm muting, just to give us a lot of variations in the styles. Big bend out, string skip. Now right here at the end of this song, I could have resolved this back to the root. But that would have sucked. So I took it up to the fifth to give it a more interesting listening point. Because I didn't want to resolve, because the listener is feeling it's going to resolve back down to that D. And so what I did is I went up to the fifth and played, because it's going to open that up and give them something else to listen to besides everything resolving back to the D, because we're so used to hearing things resolve back to the starting point. I didn't want to do that. And so I wanted to bring it up to the fifth and just give it a whole different flavor and a whole different feel at the end of the song. So everything I just talked about, those are the things I think about when I'm soloing, when I'm writing solos or whatever. And remember, you don't have to play a million miles an hour. You just have to play the right notes at the right places. The rest will take care of itself. I really can't ever recall a day of David Gilmour just... He doesn't need to. He doesn't have to. But then you have the contrast opposite of that. You have Gary Moore, which in my opinion, besides David Gilmour, is the other most melodic guitar player in the world, who does these blazingly fast pentatonic runs. But he also does it through the diatonic scale. So keep that in mind, because that's going to do a tremendous amount of good for your guitar playing. So I'm going to wrap this thing up right here. Like I said, it's a tremendous amount of information to cover, and I tried to keep this as short as I could and move as fast as I could. So on that note, we're going to wrap this thing up right there. If you have any questions or comments, please leave it down in the comments section. And if you have any questions about what's going on, or if you get lost on a particular topic, please fire off a question to me, because you know I love answering my questions and I respond to 99% of them, unless it's something stupid. And trust me, I get just shockingly stupid comments sometimes. My favorite, I think I mentioned this before, my favorite one was, "You're an arrogant son of a bitch and I want to punch you in the face." And I actually did reply to that one. That was hilarious. So I replied to just almost literally everything, 99.9% of them. And if you do send me something like that, you can pretty much bet your ass I'm going to reply to that one. And that's all I'm going to say about that. That's all I'm going to say about that. Them look like comfortable shoes. So on that note, we're going to wrap it up right there. Please subscribe to the channel. Like I said, this is the guitar we are giving away. Look at this. This thing is absolutely gorgeous. Let me get the light on it. Look at this. This guitar is absolutely beautiful. And I'm going to do another video of this guitar. Something, you know, a little svelte, a little sexy to put up on there, the guitar we're going to give away, so everybody can see what they're going to win. If everybody gets off their ass and subscribes to the channel, we got to get to 50,000 subscribers to get this thing going. Share the video, because that helps the algorithm drastically. That helps the algorithm, which I did not know that till a couple months ago. Share the video, because that really helps, because that helps when people are doing searches. This video will come up more often in what they're searching for. And with the more subscribers we get, then the faster we give this beast of a guitar away, this beautiful guitar. So right there, like the great Sammy Hagar says, if you miss the beat, you lose the rhythm and nothing falls into place. And that is true, except for when you intentionally play off of the beat to make your solos sound cooler than shit. So I love you, Sammy, and I do believe in that statement wholeheartedly, but sometimes you got to play off the beat just to keep the rhythm interesting. Until the next video, my friends, practice, practice, practice. If you have any questions, drop it down in the comments and rock on.